Hello everyone, and this is just a little progress report. Let you see that this is the Strad model, and I've gone ahead, put the ribs round and fitted the linings, and then it's the same on the Guarneri mould. That's the ribs and the linings fitted. And what I've done differently this time, if I hold that up there, you can see where this C-bout lining comes round. I've actually let it into the block, because I didn't do that on the first three violins. What I did, if I turn that round, you can see there, I bent the linings round and just buttered them up and left it like that. But what I did with this one, I decided, let's get that out of here, I decided it might make perhaps a stronger joint being let in there. And there's not much extra work involved, because you would have been bending these anyway. You would have just cut them off there at that point there, whereas you just get a narrow chisel, cut a little pocket out and set them in. And as I say, one of the reasons I did that was when I was watching, I've watched some videos on YouTube of Stradivarius violins being repaired, and when the tops are taken off, I noticed they were let into the block. So, you know, maybe it does make a stronger joint. I mean, I suppose you could argue either way, but you know, I suppose you could say the proof of the pudding is that those violins have been around, you know, 300 years. So so whether it does or it doesn't, it's neither here nor there. As I said, it doesn't take much extra work just to chop that little piece out and glue them in. So that's what I've done with those. And then the ribs themselves, I've got, this is maple, and and I wanted to add plain that edge and that edge, and I'd plain that edge, and then I'd feed it through the bandsaw, little bandsaw across there, and I'd cut them off at 1.5 mm thick. And if you imagine that this is that's been planed, I put it through the bandsaw, that comes at 1.5 mm. I then plane that edge again, feed it through the bandsaw, plane that edge again, feed it through the bandsaw, and then I then get a scraper and scrape them down to 1 mm thick. But what I have here, because I've got a second Guarneri mould, if you look here, you can see excuse me, those ribs, I've made those 2 mm thick. And the reason for that is that a future project is going to be, I'll show you this picture here. This is a Strad, a decorated Strad, and what he would do with this was carved out, and it probably went in about 0.5 mm thick or thereabouts. That's obviously why the ribs are 2 mm thick, for the extra strength. And that would be carved out, and then you would take a black paste and put it in there, and then when it was dried, scrape it off, and you end up with this pattern. And on the face here, there's a double row of purfling there, then a gap, and a second row of purfling, and then in between the purfling, that would be taken out with a chisel. And then you have these diamonds and circles, it's probably either pearl or possibly bone, or maybe even ivory, and then they were set in, and then that was filled with the black paste, and that was cleaned off. And then with the necks, or the scroll box and such, you can see another one here, similar sort of thing, carved out and the black paste put in. Now, some of these were painted, but Stradivarius, he actually, as I said, let them in and use the black paste. The black paste, from what I can gather, I think it's ebony, probably ebony sawdust, and you mix it with animal glue and put it in. I can't seem to find that you can buy ebony dust or sawdust on the internet. Maybe you have to make your own, but I don't have enough ebony to do that. But you can buy charcoal powder. So I shall get some charcoal powder, and then with these spare ribs I shall carve out and put that in, clean it off, and then see what it works out, because obviously I need to get the proportions right as how much glue to powder do you mix together. You know, probably too much, and it may not be dark enough, or and not enough glue, and it won't set properly. So it's just a case of experimentation, and once I've worked that out, I can then have a go at this here and do that. So, but that'll be, you know, in the future, that'll be, you know, later in the year, that'll happen. but I shall go into detail with that, and I'll show you the carving process and etc, etc. So that's a future project. And then I've actually gone ahead and I've done the backs and the fronts. This is the Guarneri, the back, sorry, that's the belly, and that's the back. And they're about, I'd say they're about 80% finished. And the same with the, with this here. This is the Strad, belly and back. That's slightly darker because I gave it a coat of, I had some shellac. I just rubbed the coat on just to see what the grain looked like. But that'll clean off. But once again, so these are about 80% finished. So they need you know, a little bit more scraping to finish them off. But that's where I am at the moment. And then for those of you who don't know, these backs and fronts, this is a piece of spruce, but it comes in a piece like that, and then it has to be cut down the middle and then cut into two pieces to form the left and right hand side. And it starts off life, this is just a piece of firewood, this, but you can see that's the bark there, and that would have been the centre of the tree, and so in effect it's like a slice of cake, and that would have been like that. And then, as I say, you cut it down the middle. Now, I only have a bandsaw. The bandsaw's fine for small things, but for that I had to cut them by hand, and you end up with that, and then it splits in two, and then you plane both the faces up and the edges, and then it glues together like so. And you need to work at this to get a perfect joint, and you check it by holding up to the light, because if you can see a chink of daylight and you glue it together, then that'll be a slight gap of glue, and for the better acoustics you want a tight joint. So that is that. So the next clip I'll just show you. You can see how I cut it in two. And that's now cut, you can see, just, and then that'll open up like that. This will be the inside, and that will be the outside. And a nice piece of spruce this. Now the next thing is to plane it up. So I've got myself a shooting board here, and then I have a jack plane. And what you'll find is if I put, you can't see that, but if I put a straight edge on there, I can see it's slightly high at either end. Now what will happen is, that's the beauty of using a long bodied plane, you see, because it'll ride over most of that, and then it'll pick up, you'll see now, it's planing there, and it's planing there, they're the high spots. If I put a straight edge on, it's a bit early yet, but I can see that it's a little high spot. But as I said, the plane, because of the length of the plane, it'll ride over those high spots. For example, if you used something like this, it's so small, it'll be up and down all over the place. So a jack plane, and then one thing to do as well is on your planes here you have a little lever for adjusting the blade. So exaggerated, that blade's in there like that, well that lever will cant it that way or that way. So you just got to make sure that your blade is square. For example, if your blade's slightly off, you'll not plane square, because in effect you'll be planing, in fact do it that way. If that's the plain blade, if you've not got it straight, for example, you'll be planing like that, and you'll never get a good surface, a flat surface. So important. One done, and what I'll do now, what I like to do in here, just put a mark, that's a face mark where it'll joint, and then we'll do the same with this one. We'll do a double check. That's nice and flat now. So once again, put a little pencil mark on there, and those two want jointing now. I've got that flat, so it's just a case of machines, and then put that on there, and then this is a piece of 80mm MDF with an extra 80mm piece to lift it up, and the plane sits on like that, and then I'll just run like that. And if I get me square, because that's flat to there, that's 90 degrees to there. That, believe it or not, it's not bad at all. You can see that, but that is square. And then if I do the same with this one, and that all being well, and what I've done with my square, there it is. That's not so bad, so in theory, they go together like that. And then what you want to do is hold that up to light and you move it. Basically you don't want any daylight. It is now. When I hold it up to the light, and you can see how it's not rocking, it's flat. You know, if that joint wasn't flat, you'd find that swinging on the high points, but you can see how it's not doing that. And then see, when I hold it up to the light, there's no daylight coming through, because you don't want daylight, because if you think about it, once I start carving this top, I'll have to clear it, this arching is only going to be probably a couple of millimetres thick. Oh, well, you can't really see it. Oh, you can see there, and that'll curve. Well, if you can see the slightest bit of daylight showing through, you can appreciate as you carve it, you'll see the glue might fill the joint, but nevertheless, it'll look unsightly, you know. So you need a good tight joint. Plus, a good tight joint's better for the cue sticks. So, I mean, that looks like, because it's a shadow, it looks like there's a gap there, but trust me, there's not. And that is how you joint your boards. Just to you get a better idea, that is what I call the shooting board. So it's a piece of MDF with a second piece put on, and then, as I said, then the jack plane then sits like that, and because that's 90 degrees and you run it along, you get your 90 degree joint. And then there's a little few bits of plywood on the end there just to stop. That's like you see, and it stops that, and that's basically how that works. And then I think my next job is to have a good sweep up, because we've got plenty of shavings. You can see, as I say, how thin the well, in fact, you can I think if you can see, well, you can there, you can see the shadow of my thumb. So you don't need to be talking of shaving. I think I need to have a shave as well. So yeah. So that's that. So yep. So that's it. So I think shower dish here for me. It's Friday night here, so I think me and my good lady may go to the pub for a couple of beers. So righty ho. So see you in the next clip. Bye for now.